Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to the first ever Vegan Health and Fitness podcast. We're recording here at Loscampeonestempe. We have Ryan Nelson, the owner of Loscampeonestempe, and we have Dr. Ben with us today.
Good to be here. Glad we're finally getting this podcast going. I'm super stoked.
It's been a long time coming.
This is going to be good. I'm excited to be able to be here with you guys and be doing it out of the gym here, and I think it's going to be pretty epic.
It's a great location.
So I guess we'll get started. This first episode, Ryan, we're going to hear all about your story, because obviously when people see, 255-pound vegan trainer, they're thinking, man, how the hell is he pulling that off? That can't be real. So,
yeah, man, I'm excited to talk a little bit about my story and then talk about your story too. So
absolutely, yeah.
Should we get it started? You gonna ask me some questions here, or what's up?
Yeah. So, I know we've known each other for like a year and a half now, but I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I don't know, and there's a bunch of stuff listeners would love to know about you. But you grew up in Wyoming, right? That's where you were born?
Yeah, originally born in Sheridan, Wyoming, and grew up just down the road in Bighorn, Wyoming.
Okay, have no idea what either of those places are. They're pretty small towns.
Yeah, Bighorn, Wyoming is population 119, 118 now that I'm not there.
Oh, man. So, and I imagine that's not where you went vegan, and there really isn't much of that out there, huh?
Yeah, definitely a pretty foreign concept in that area, still even in 2019. But certainly growing up there, it was named the most Midwestern town in America, and it definitely holds true to that. It's Wranglers, cowboy boots, big belt buckles, rodeos, cattle ranches, hunting and fishing, farming, ranching, and that's the lifestyle there.
Okay, and so like growing up there, what did your parents do for work? Were they ranchers or?
Yeah, so my family did have a cattle ranch, and we usually had like 1 to 200 cows, or in this case, they're known as yearlings, where they're like kind of a younger cow. You raise them from what's called a calf, like 4 to 6 months old, to approximately like a year old. So you raise them for like 6 months, and then you sell them to the beef industry to be made into hamburgers and T-bone steaks and all those sorts of things.
Okay, so you grew up on a ranch then, or?
Yeah, we had like I said, like 1 to 200 head of yearlings, and then my dad was a coal miner, and my mom was a secretary for most of my childhood.
Okay.
So it was like kind of a side business that the family did to make extra money.
Okay, you have brothers and sisters?
No, only child.
Okay. So where along the way did fitness come in? Were you playing sports as a kid? Like, I know you were into football, but what else were you doing?
Yeah, so when I was probably about 10 years old is when I was really starting to look at some of the older guys and be like, oh, that's really cool. They're good in football or basketball, and kind of starting to admire like their physiques and how they looked. Maybe much like someone would explain their relationship with the old bodybuilding magazines of Arnold Schwarzenegger or something like that. I started to see these guys who were bigger and stronger be very successful on the football field. And so I understood at that point that this was something that they were doing outside of football to make them better at football. So I was intrigued by that. And that's what brought me to weight training. When I was 11 years old, I started weight training.
11, okay.
Yeah.
How did that go down? You're just like, Mom and Dad, I want to hit the gym, or what happened?
Yeah, I expressed to my father that I wanted to start weight training, and oddly enough, like at kind of like a more younger, like freshman age, the high school kids would maybe kind of pick on you and make fun of you and stuff. But like I was even younger than that, so they kind of thought it was cool that I was 11 years old and wanted to work out. So I remember specifically listening to "Wanna Be a Baller" Shot Caller rap music, And 20-inch blades on the Impala. I remember that specific rap song playing all the time. In the cafeteria, which was our weight room in the summertime, because my school was pretty small, with the population of 119.
Was it all one, like from kindergarten through 12th grade, all one school?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay.
Kindergarten through 12th grade, we went to school Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4 p.m. So it was kind of a different setup, but it worked good for us. We hit the weights hard, and I was inspired at a young age of 11 years old, and along the way, a lot of the other kids my age started weight training too, and we were really good at athletics, and I would accredit it to our football coach pushing us to the weight room and to do those sort of strength training exercises at a young age, and we were back-to-back state champions in football, which we took a lot of pride in.
So at what age did football come into the picture? Like, when did you start playing?
Yeah, I started playing football as soon as you could, flag football, which I think was probably like 6 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, pretty young, you could start playing flag football. And then, at that point, like quickly after that, probably like 6th or 7th grade, you were playing like full-on tackle football.
Okay.
So, yeah, football was a huge part of my life growing up.
And was it just the sport out there?
Yeah, I would say football was kind of the main sport, and then like basketball was a pretty close second. And I was involved in basketball too, but just didn't have that same passion as I did for football.
So you're back-to-back state champions. This was when you were in like high school age, or?
Yeah, this is 16, 17 years old.
So this is at a town of 119 people.
Yep.
Y'all are state champs, knocking out some
State
of
champs.
the big. I mean, I don't know how big the big cities are in Wyoming, but they're a lot bigger than 120 people.
Yeah, we were certainly like playing teams to the same caliber in the sense of like other size schools were the same size, but in the sense of like where our talent level was at, it was definitely a lot higher, just in the sense of like we were putting in that time in the weight room that made the players on our team a high caliber, I felt.
Okay. And so was that kind of led by you? Was it one of the first ones who got really into that, or was it just a theme at the school? Or
I would say more than anything, it was the head coach of the football team, Bobby St. John. He was very strict in the sense of if you weren't in the weight room, you weren't going to play. It was just like, period. If you don't put it there, he is still there. He doesn't. He just teaches now. He doesn't do the coaching anymore that I'm aware of. But yeah, he actually is still there, and I actually trained his son for like 5 years online for a long time. So I have a close relationship with that family.
Okay.
So at what age would you say you started just really loving the gym, loving working out? At what age did it just become a second nature?
Yeah, I mean, I still vividly recall the first reps I did on bench press with the easy bar that was like 25 pounds, and then I would put like the 2.5 pounders outside of it when I was feeling strong. So, usually the easy bar is like 25 pounds, and then if you're putting 2.5ers outside of it, it's like 30-pound bench press. I still recall those as being really fun, and then like graduating eventually to a 45-pound bar, and then to a plate, and then to 2 plates, and then to 3 plates, and then to 4 plates on bench press. And the whole process along the entire way, I think, has been equally as fun.
Okay.
And what did it feel like as a high schooler knowing that you had control over making yourself stronger, over making yourself better each day?
Yeah, I think it was just really empowering as a young man, and as like an individual and as a group, to see how not only you could change your body, but you could change your mind inside the weight room and push new limits and levels that oftentimes I think would be left untouched just simply because of the fact that, what does one workout link up to 2 workouts, link up to a week, to a month, to a whole summer, and how does that make a difference in how an individual and a group performs in a season? And it was just pretty extraordinary to see like the difference in, our team versus other teams, and the commitment level that we put in outside the season.
So by say, midway through high school, how big are you? What position are you playing? What's football like for you at that point?
Yeah, so I'm a junior in high school football, and I'm about 6'1", 175 pounds. Pretty much a string bean, but very lean, and starting at defensive end and starting at tight end. And I'm doing pretty good. I'm like getting recognized around the state as one of the leading players. And then going into senior season, I'm coming in at like 185 pounds, and I'm coming in as a captain. And starting the season out, probably one of my best football games ever in high school for sure. Rival team scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter and beat our rival team pretty bad, like significantly. But just to score 3 touchdowns in the first quarter really set the tone. And we went on to do very good that season, and I went on to be picked as one of the top players in the state to go on to Salt Lake City and go to the Shriners Hospital and meet the kids there at the Shriners Hospital and
nice.
play in the Shriners game, which is the most honorary game to play in Wyoming, where the North and the South play each other.
Okay. So are you playing any offense at this point, or are you just on?
Yeah, playing offense and defense. I believe I was playing tight end actually in the All-Star game.
Okay. So, and I know some of your story that eventually, you go on to play some arena football, right? And
yeah,
you moved
so
to
after high school, got a scholarship, moved to North Dakota, and played college football out there.
Oh, really? Okay.
And had a lot of fun playing college football in North Dakota. Met a lot of great friends, and then was blessed with the opportunity afterwards to play in the indoor football league in Fairbanks, Alaska. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never knew you'd lived in either of those 2 states.
Yeah, both of them frigid cold. That's what I would have to say about North Dakota and Alaska.
Wyoming's got to get pretty cold in the winter too, huh?
Certainly Wyoming, and and then after there I went to Minnesota, so 4 of the coldest places you can live.
Okay, so how did arena football go down in Alaska? What was that like?
Yeah, arena football is a totally different animal as far as like the fundamentals and how everything goes. It's a much smaller field. I would say the game's faster in a lot of senses.
That's
and
50 yards, right?
50-yard field.
Oh,
yep.
wow, okay.
And
A lot more touchdowns.
More touchdowns, and it's good for the fans. There's a lot of action going on. You can get hit over the side rails, like kind of like checked, almost like hockey. And it's kind of like a Renegades game where a lot of the guys in the NFL maybe didn't quite make it because like they got busted for something, or they got in trouble, or something didn't quite pan out for them. So you got like a lot of good guys out there playing, but like they just didn't make it because they goofed up somewhere along the way. But it's a good game, and I had a lot of fun. I initially showed up there as basically a substitute if someone got hurt, and went on to do very well and become the captain of the football team there, and had a great season. Injured myself with a pretty significant hamstring tear.
Ooh,
and from there went on to choose to do my own thing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and moved there and started my personal training career.
Okay. So when does the vegan thing come into the picture? Was this like in Minneapolis, or was this?
Yeah, this comes into play in Minneapolis, and about 2012 this comes into play in Minneapolis.
How long you been in Minneapolis at that point?
In 2012 was when I moved to Minneapolis, and I was dating a female at the time that had a lot of digestive issues, and we were experimenting with removing different food groups so that she would be able to digest food easier and not be so constipated. And she came home one day and said, she came home from chiropractic school and said, I'm going to go vegan. And I said, okay.
She was in
cool.
chiropractic
Yeah,
school?
she was in chiropractic school. She was a chiropractor. And so I watched her over the month completely basically reverse all of her digestive issues with this vegan thing. And she's like, I know you don't have digestive issues, Ryan, but I think it could help your performance. And I was kind of like, I don't know, but I mean, I did watch it completely change your digestive system.
So at this point, you're a personal trainer. Are you also training for like competitive bodybuilding too?
At this point, I'm a personal trainer I am still kind of having football dreams in my head that I think I should be playing football, but I'm focusing on my personal training at this point and building my body and repairing my hamstring.
Okay.
That I goofed up playing football. And so I give the vegan thing a try. Skeptically, I take my body fat beforehand, and after 3 weeks, I can tell not only by how I feel, but how I look in the mirror that there's definitely some differences. But I'm still a little skeptical at this point. So after 3 weeks, I do the body fat calipers again. And at that point, I was weighing around like 227 pounds when I started. And I vividly remember when I took the body fat calipers again and I got on the scale, I was like 222 pounds. So I was kind of a little bummed that I was down in weight, especially like this big guy mentality. But then I looked at the results and I was like, wow, I'm actually down 7 pounds of fat and I'm up a pound of muscle. So I was like, well, I should keep doing this. This is affirmation that not only the mirror and how I feel is better, but like, here's the data. And so then after that point, like that thing, that was out of the way. Like I didn't have those thoughts anymore about like, oh, you're going to get small if you go vegan. That was gone. So some more time went by and I was like digging it, feeling good, eating a lot of new food, and had quinoa for the first time. I thought that's what it was called. Had some quinoa, eating a lot of different colors, and just noticing mental clarity go up and noticing how my energy was like just everlasting. And I should mention at the time I was doing pretty much what I would call an 80-10-10 diet, or maybe like a raw till 4 diet, where I was eating mostly fruit through the morning and midday, and then like a big cooked meal at night, like rice and bean based. And I was going and going and going, and then I was kind of thinking, you know, there's people who do this for reasons outside of the health stuff. And numbers always really jump out to me, and I'm thinking like, man, I was eating a lot of animal products now that I'm thinking about it. And I was like, man, you know, being that big dude eating 6 chicken breasts a day, that's 3 chickens. And 1 fish every day, that's 2 fish fillets. That's 4 animals every day. And, you know, I kept doing the math in my head. And I was like, every week that's 28. Every month that's over 100. Every year that's almost 1,500. And I was thinking about that football stadium that I was playing in. And I was thinking, man, NFL stadium, that's about 50 to 75,000 people. That's about how many will fit in there. And I was thinking, man, after 50 years of this, you know, same continued 3 chickens, 6 chicken breasts a day, 1 fish, 2 fish fillets, that's going to fill up that entire football stadium. And I was like, I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with that at all. And I was like, that's just me. And that's when I made the choice ethically to never consume animal products again. Yeah, and that was almost 8 years ago. And yeah, I think probably like everyone in here and a lot of other people who made that choice, the only thing I regret is not doing it sooner.
Right on. So did you have people you were training with at the time, and were they naysaying, or were they just kind of, you weren't telling them about it, or how did that go down? Because I imagine if you were at a gym, you're a bodybuilder, you got clients you're training, like most people, you're not doing it because other people around you are doing it. So was there like some negativity, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I feel like for a long time people are like, what are you doing with this 1 gallon jug with blended up bananas in there? Like, dude, what is this? And if you don't drink it, it starts smelling funny. And then I'm like learning my stuff a little bit and making some veggie burgers, and people are like, all right, that tastes all right. That's not too bad. And then some people would be like, how long are you going to do this vegan thing for? Like, is it just a cleanse, or like, are you just going to do it for the bodybuilding show? Or like, what's the deal with this, man? Are you going to keep doing that? And so there's like a lot of mixed feelings and emotions. And, you know, beyond the gym, of course, like, you know, word gets back to my father, whether it's like through me, or I'm like, Dad, I'm eating a lot of bananas, or through someone. But
is he still in Wyoming, or is he?
Yeah, so he's still in Wyoming, and like actually at the time he was working on a game ranch, which a game ranch is just a ranch where they have wild animals that aren't really that wild that they go out and hunt.
Because they're kind of trapped in.
Yeah, they're trapped. They're trapped in a 28,000 acre cage, basically. And,
okay.
So this is a different perspective on how I'm doing things. I hunted, I fished, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and now I'm like doing the opposite of that. I'm like, dude, I'm not eating animals, I'm not hunting animals, I'm not wearing animals, I'm not doing anything that's going to hurt animals.
Were you still hunting when you were in like Alaska or Minnesota or any of that, or was that only what you did as a kid in Wyoming? Or
Yeah, so when I was initially moving to Minnesota from Alaska, at that point I was in like a really confused state almost of like, okay, I'm moving towards this plant-based like diet, but I'm not there ethically yet at this point, and I'm like, am I going bow hunting for deer but not eating the meat, or like am I going pheasant hunting and or not eating the meat but like giving it to friends? And I'm in this really confused like state of like, okay, I'm doing this for health reasons, now I'm leaning more towards ethical reasons. That stuff isn't right anymore. So I'm putting these pieces together, and at this point I'm not really like researching on the internet veganism or anything. I'm just kind of like doing it based off of like, hey, my girlfriend's doing this, I feel better, she feels better, and then putting these pieces together as we're going. And yeah, it's at this point where I'm moving to Minnesota and I'm transitioning into an all plant-based diet that I'm like, I'm not cool with the hunting anymore. And at that point, like some of the family, some of the people back in Wyoming are like, what's up with this guy? Like, is this guy gay? They thought maybe I was like gay because I wasn't eating animal products. Like that was the mentality, that maybe I was a homosexual because I didn't want to eat animal products, which makes no sense to me at all.
The two have to do with each other.
Because they have nothing to do with each
You're
other.
doing one thing out of the ordinary, you must be doing a lot of things out of the
Exactly.
ordinary. Yeah.
So there's this mindset in that area that, if you don't eat meat, that you're not masculine or manly, and just very over the top in that direction, I would say, still exists and to this day. But hopefully leading by example now for many years, nearly 8. Thanksgiving is coming up soon, and that marks the 8th year anniversary of being vegan for me. I actually went vegan the day after Thanksgiving, so...
That was like you woke up and you were like, what the hell did I do yesterday?
That was no good.
Yeah, I was just basically like, wow, like, I am not cool with the massacre of an entire species every year. And that sounded really wrong to me. And beyond that, like, I always used to really like eating lamb chops. And I'm like putting the taste beyond this now and thinking more about that, and I'm like, that is like a baby that I'm eating. And I was like, no, that is not cool with me. So just a lot of like self-realization going on in this point of becoming more plant-based, Thanksgiving coming around, and yeah, making that transition.
Gotcha. Got a few more questions for you. So at some point, the football dream eventually just kind of fades, but bodybuilding becomes a thing for you. Like you've competed, you've been on stage, you've taken home some hardware. Like how did that get started for you, and how'd that go? Were you only doing that as a vegan, or had you competed before that?
Yeah, so basically I was always known as the lifter guy. From when I was a young guy, all the way through high school and in college, I was always the guy that was lifting. And, everyone always kind of said, like, you're going to be a bodybuilder someday, Ryan. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know really about that. Then I became a personal trainer, and I was like, maybe I should do bodybuilding. Like, it'd be cool to do, and it'd probably be good for my business. And so I was like, let's pick a show and do a bodybuilding show. So at that time, I had never done a bodybuilding show. And it was pretty new to me being vegan as well. So picked the show, was vegan. Wasn't exactly sure what to be eating. Like I said, I was eating a ton of fruit. Also had a client doing it with me, first time she'd ever done a show, and we were both doing it vegan.
So this was like 2012, 2013. When was this?
Yeah, this is like 2013.
Okay.
So we're getting ready for this show, and we're looking pretty good, and we get on stage, and I get third out of 4. 2 pretty big guys beat me, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I get on stage again, and I get second out of 2. I got beat like so bad by this monster.
So
and
is
I'm
it like you're not getting big enough? Your posing's not good. Like, what do you attribute to you?
I'm like, my posing needs to come a long ways, and I need to be bigger because the guy who beat me was a monster. And so I take a little bit of time off, and I come back and I do another show, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got this one for sure. There's not a lot of super heavyweights usually stepping on stage. Like, that's 225 pounds and bigger.
Okay.
So like, first of all, there's not that many people. Second of all, they're usually not in that good a shape. Like, they're just not super ripped, but they're big.
Okay, so super heavyweight means you could be 300 pounds. Or
Yeah,
you could be anywhere.
anything over 225 pounds is super heavyweight.
Okay.
And when you're like a low body fat percentage, it takes a big guy to be over 225 pounds, lean. So I get up there on stage, and it's my third show, and I'm feeling pretty good. I took some time off. I've gotten bigger, worked on my posing. And I get up there on stage, and I'm like, I got these guys for sure this time. And I get third out of 3. And I was crushed. I was like, what the hell? Like, this is politics. Like, welcome to bodybuilding, Ryan. And I dwell on it for just a little bit, and I'm thinking, well, if I want to be the best, like, I got to go train where the best people are. And I knew there was a monster big dude that trained at this Los Campeones gym in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was like, well, I guess that's where I got to go if I want to win. And so I walked down to Los Campeones, and sure enough, there this massive guy was named Charles Griffin.
So can I interrupt you for a sec?
Yeah.
So I mean, you just got your ass handed to you like 3 times.
Yep.
But you're like, you're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I should be winning this. Like, I got to figure this out. Like, it just fueled you to just want to excel.
Definitely a competitive person, and like getting beat. And maybe I should have got beat, but I didn't think I should have got beat. I was like, man, wherever like my commitment level is right now, I got to take it to a whole nother level. And if I'm going to do that, I got to do it at this other gym where I know they're doing it. So that's when I got introduced to Los Campeones.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so you started training with this guy. He was a monster, and he was
this guy, I didn't even train with this guy. This guy is like, you don't even train with this guy. He's just in like headphones, like scary guy in the corner, but he's motivating. And so I trained there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, got a show picked out in my head. Like, I'm going to train hard for a few weeks and see what I can do. I'm going to bring a better package. And I go up the road a little ways to this town called Duluth and compete at this show called the Iron Viking. And I look substantially better and get up there and win first for the first time. And I just remember, like, after a couple years of doing it and like taking the time and getting beat 3 times, like how good it felt to finally win. And then, yeah, basically after that, the next 2 shows, I won the overall in both bodybuilding and in classic physique. So those got added in afterwards. So a couple more classes that were actually a little bit more favorable to my body type, more of a classic old school look versus like a mass monster, more modern day bodybuilding look. And that was 2 years ago when I last stepped on stage, and it was here in Phoenix, Arizona here. And won the overall in men's classic bodybuilding, and won the super heavyweight bodybuilding as well. So yeah, it was a good way to represent not only as a plant-based vegan athlete of several years, but also just for myself as an individual to make the transition down to this side of the world from living up north for a long time and step down here, win a big bodybuilding show, get my name out down here, and so people who knew who I was, and then I moved down here shortly afterwards.
Okay, so you were living there. You just like decided to do a show out here, like a big show, and then you won. And you just, how did you end up deciding to come out to Arizona?
Yeah, so I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 6 years. Very successful personal trainer there. Had a large clientele, and owned a really nice house. And decided one day that I wanted to live in a warmer climate, closer to my parents. And Arizona was just a really great opportunity to do both of those things with a good fitness community and a place where the cost of living was pretty affordable in the sense of California, Miami, and Denver, Colorado were all much more expensive places to live.
You come out here, and are you still competing at this point, or are you just like, what's...
Yeah, so I get out to Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm like, hey, you know, like, I'm this big-time trainer. Like, everyone should jump in right now and train with me. Like, this is how much it costs. And I'm like, crickets.
But you had it knocked back in Minneapolis, right? Like, you were busy. You were
yeah, I was like the man.
Yeah.
And then I got here, and I'm like, I'm still the man. And everyone's like, we don't know who you are, though, dude. And so I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I'm going to totally have to rebuild myself up out here. And I think you maybe know this story as well as I do, but times got a little tough. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not making enough money training like 1 or 2 hours a week, a couple of clients at $40 or $50. I was like, I'm going to have to do something else. So I started driving Lyft and was driving people all around town. Got to know the city really good. And I picked this guy up 7 a.m. in the morning. I really didn't want to get up and drive, but I was like, I got to go drive a little bit this morning. Picked this guy up. His name was Rusty. Rusty was like, yeah, I'm going over to work out at a gym across town here. My buddies own it. I was like, oh, that's cool, man. I used to be a personal trainer. He's like, really? He's like, you should come in and meet my buddies. Like, if you still want to personal train, you could personal train at their gym, I bet. And I was immediately interested. I was like, man, maybe this is my opportunity.
Because you didn't have a base of operations.
I didn't have a base, man. All I had was an ab mat and a red band, and I would just train in the park.
Or you were training people at like EOS or...
Yeah, it was sketchy. It was like training people in the park and like getting kicked out, or there was like homeless people that were like coming up to us. Like, it wasn't good. And so I walked into this gym, and they're like, yeah, you can train here. So I started training out of this.
So you dropped the guy off, and then you're like, I'm going to come in and check the gym out.
Yeah, exactly. I dropped Rusty off, and then walked in with Rusty, and he's like, here's the owners. And the owners were like, yeah, if you want to train here, you can train here. So I started training at the gym called Elite Esthetics, and started building a clientele up there, and I was happy. It was good. It's good.
So they kind of let you do what you want?
Yeah, they were letting me like build my clientele up and helping me kind of get started, and I was like, okay, I got a base again, and that made me feel good.
So
and
spoiler alert, where was Elite Esthetics?
Elite Esthetics is where the current Los Campeones gym is.
Okay. And just to give people perspective, Los Campeones was a gym up in Minnesota. Do they have like a bunch of branches or? Yeah,
so my good friend, who I call my brother, Benjamin Lauer, he owns 3 Los Campeones gyms in Minneapolis. And so when I moved down here and I was training out of this gym, they said, we're going to move. I immediately was like, maybe I should hit up my buddy Benjamin in Minneapolis.
Move out of this space.
They're going to move out of this space, Elite Esthetics, and it was just going to go up for rent for something. And I was like, hey, I would be interested in renting this space and doing my own gym, but I needed some money. And so I was like, hey, buddy, there's a great place for a gym and a good opportunity right now. I think you should come down and look at it. If you're interested, I would love to make this thing happen, you and me, and I'll run this place. Just give me a little cash to get it going. And he was interested, and he came down, and one of my good friends, Benjamin, training partner for a long time in Minneapolis, owns the Minneapolis Los Campeones gyms. He came down and he said, I love it, dude. Let's make it happen. And it seemed impossible at times, and the paperwork was endless, but January 19th of 2019, we opened the doors, grand opening to Los Campeones.
So it's been only about a year since you were even thinking about it?
Yeah, so we're coming up right now on the year mark. But yeah, like we took over the lease November 16th of 2018, and the grand opening was on January 19th.
Okay.
So yeah, so not really all that long. About a year ago, we started thinking it and made it happen in 1 month, which was like ridiculous fast timing.
I remember we were in here painting. We were just hustling, just getting this place ready.
Yeah.
It was fun, man.
It was like, even down to the last hour of the grand opening, we were doing stuff to get ready. And it's just been a wild ride ever since.
How did you two get in contact? How did you get to know each other?
Oh, that's a pretty funny story. So I got this buddy. His name is Bone Breaker. That's the nickname he goes by. And he used to have a vegan gym in Austin called Bone Breaker Barbell. And he basically, I decided he moved out here, and then about maybe like 6 months later, I moved out here. And he's like, and this guy's like a really good personal trainer. Like he is, he's gotten me in crazy good shape. He's trained a lot of people. He's a beast. And he's like, hey, I've been training with this guy. His name's Ryan. He's a vegan trainer, and this dude's the real deal. And when Bonebreaker says somebody's the real deal at being a personal trainer, like, you listen, because he pretty much doesn't like anybody. And he has something to say about, everybody's personal training style and fitness and, what they know about biomechanics and stuff like this. And this guy is, like, basically a savant when it comes to understanding human anatomy and biomechanics and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, this guy Ryan's legit. Like, I want to train with him. And so I says to him, hey, I'm just moving here, like, California. Like, I'm kind of broke. Do you think maybe that Ryan would be down to, like, trade chiropractic for, like, personal training for a little while I get my feet? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Let me check with Ryan. And so then he calls me back the next day, and he's like, I talked with Ryan, and he's like definitely all about the trade. And I was like, yeah.
Needing that chiropractic?
Yeah. and so that's how we met. And that was before Ryan was here. And so it was like we went to go train at this gym up the road called Independence. And that's one of those places where you got to be on their payroll to be training people, or they get pissed. And so we kind of got caught, like Ryan training me, but they let him off pretty easy. But I was just we were just hitting up different spots to kind of train before he got here, and we were trading and everything. And I got super huge. Like the first 2 months here, I went from I probably showed up in Phoenix at like $165, and by the time I was done with Ryan, I was at like $187 after like
2 months.
Yeah, I was eating so much food too. It was out of control. Yeah. So
yeah, we were just training so hard. Dr. Ben's appetite was just like skyrocketing. I mean, I know he doesn't care, but there was definitely some Taco Bell trips late night because the appetite was just ravenous.
Yep, I'm not going to lie.
Bean burritos?
Yeah. So yeah, he was one of the first people I met when I moved out here. And so when he showed up, he got the gig at, training people at Elite Esthetics. It was like, game on, let's do this. And it was kind of funny because it was like this place was basically a personal training studio. And so he was training people. He was like the vegan guy, but he was bigger than like everybody else who trained here. So like when he started, breaking out the vegan food, people were like, I want to know more about this, right? And it definitely like changed the mind of some people here.
Yeah, I feel like everyone was pretty intrigued initially, and then maybe a little later on, even to the point where they're like, hey, I think I'm going to maybe do a couple vegan days a week, or do a vegan meal, or, do a little bit more plant-based food. So definitely changed some minds. at the gym as far as the trainers here, the owners, and some of the clientele.
Yeah. So now, how does it work with this? This gym is a vegan gym. It's like no animal products allowed. But it doesn't seem like you rub it in everybody's face either. But it sounds like you still have a lot of influence. A lot of people still come to you with questions. Like, what's your kind of general philosophy or strategy about being an evangelist or being an example? Because it doesn't seem like you're very pushy with it, but at the same time, it seems like you influence a lot of people still.
Yeah, just from what I've noticed, over the time that I have been vegan, is that coming off too strong oftentimes with the veganism aspect seems to kind of rub people the wrong way. And what I've noticed the best is just leading by example for the most part, really is what people are digging, especially when they get to know you good and then they're like, oh, what's up with the vegan thing? Like, I heard or saw that you're vegan or someone said you're vegan.
Tell me it's not true.
Yeah. and so it's more like in that aspect, I find it to be more powerful. So I really wanted the gym to be like a model of that. And in the sense of, we don't have whey proteins, we don't have casein proteins, we don't have egg proteins, we don't have beef proteins, we don't have any animal product proteins, we don't have the bars, we don't have any of the prepared meals over there that have animal products. We don't do the leather. We do our best not to have anything from animal in here. And I think that it sets not only a good energetic vibration in the gym from the sense of that stuff isn't in here, but I think it sets a good vibe for the gym a lot of times too, because the people that are coming into the gym aren't consuming a lot of those really gnarly animal products. So they're more happy, upbeat people, in my opinion. And even if people do choose to eat animal products, they're still welcome to the gym. And preferably, for our overall goal, more people that aren't vegan come into the gym so they can see how well plant-based or more plant-based athletes can perform. As an example, not by hearing anything, but just by seeing other individuals that have made that choice, that live very successful lives outside of being healthy and fit in the gym. Other business owners, people who are successful. So I think just overall for the gym, like, we just want it to be a place where people can come and not feel like they need to be vegan or look a certain way or anything like that, but just like a safe place for people to come and bring the community together.
So yeah, I mean, I noticed you do a lot of community events here too, or sponsor certain events that maybe don't necessarily take place at the gym, but like y'all did, like for example, a farm sanctuary day, right?
Yeah, we have done a lot of different things to include the community in different ways. One of them being, like you mentioned, a farm sanctuary visit for the kids, which we did exercise in the front, and then we did like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a bus ride over to the farm sanctuary, and then visited all the animals over at the farm sanctuary. One of the really fun events we've done here at the gym.
Okay. So, I mean, it seems like you got a good thing going on. There's probably, only a handful of other vegan gyms in the country right now that I can think of. I mean, I've trained at New Ethic in Oakland. I know that one. Will's got more of like a fitness studio over in Mesa in Arizona. But I can't think of any other like vegan gyms off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just know of Ed Bauer's gym in Oakland, and then I know of one in the South Florida area, a little north of Miami. A gal owns a vegan gym. I would say like similar to mine. Like she's not doing the animal products in there or anything, and probably a large majority of her people are plant-based as well. And then there's also one a friend of mine owns, Derek Tree Size. Over in the, I think it's like somewhere over in that Kentucky, Louisiana, southern part of the states area.
Okay.
Somewhere over in that area he owns. So a handful of plant-based vegan gyms across the country, but definitely have a lot of pride and honor in having one here in Tempe, Arizona.
Cool. So what's in the future for you? You got this gym, you want to keep it going. I imagine you have plans for expansion. And I get also, like, are you going to get back into competitive bodybuilding at all, or what's in store for Ryan Nelson?
Yeah, right now we're really doing everything we can to build the gym up more and more every day. It's getting bigger, and eventually we would like to expand to multiple different locations throughout the valley here. And then definitely the long-term goal is to move into other Southwest cities in the area, like San Diego and Las Vegas are two areas that eventually I would really like to have gyms there. They could have a similar influence on the community as far as bringing the community together, showing people what more of a plant-based health and fitness lifestyle can be like for you. And of course, at some point, I would love to get back on the bodybuilding stage. Currently enjoying coaching a lot of athletes and building the gym up. And I think I'll know when the time's right to get back on stage again. But definitely want to do that not only for myself, but to rep the gym and to rep the vegan lifestyle.
Cool. So where can people find out more about the gym? Where can people find more out about you if they go online?
Yeah, definitely a couple good places. I mean, the main social media outlets, Instagram and Facebook. You can check out Ryan Nelson Fitness on Instagram and loscampeonestempe on Instagram.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Any more questions from you?
So you said when you first started training for competitions as a vegan, you were mostly just eating fruit and kind of winging it. How did that evolve over the next few years after that?
Yeah, so I got on stage, like I said, and I was like, damn, I need to get a little bit bigger. What is my nutrition doing for me as far as getting bigger? And I was like, it's fueling me with a ton of energy, but maybe I need to take a look at a little bit more of a whole foods, plant-based, cooked diet. So I went from a lot of bananas and fruits to more like lentils, legumes, tofu, tempeh, peas, quinoa, and
Nobody says it right the first time.
and then like I really always have been into like the buckwheat. So I started including more of those foods into my nutrition, and that's when I was like, oh, now I can actually get bigger. So that was something that I made a transition to about 6 months into being vegan.
And then you discussed kind of masculinity earlier, like people wondering what happened to you. You don't want to hunt anymore. You're not eating steaks anymore. Did you have any of your own identity crisis, or did you always feel pretty firm in what you had decided to do?
Yeah, I think that there was, for the most part, no like skeptical thoughts that were going through my head about as far as the choices I was making. They seemed to be a lot more aligned with who I am as a person, just as far as like, hey, if we love animals, then we're not going to put them on the dinner table. We're not going to do those other things to them. And just really started to see clearly how the connection was between how we treat others and how we'd like to be treated. And definitely a believer in karma. And I think, the golden rule kind of can be applied to all religions across the board. And for me, like beyond religion, it's just something I like to live by. And if you're doing good to others, and that'll come back to you. And if you're not, then that will too. So I think that along the lines that's just been like a main factor for me is just, if you can relate to that, then you can understand like why I'm vegan.
Please subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date on our videos. If you are not already subscribed to our magazine, you'll find the link to do so in this video's description.